Breaking news from Alaska. Protests are erupting everywhere. Nature is rebelling too, washing away the roads where Putin once walked. Is NATO entering Ukraine? This weapon tears up the ground beneath it. The Stork drone bursts onto the battlefield and delivers a devastating blow. An epic moment. Something has happened at the front. Our forces have made a breakthrough. Is a total cleansing of enemy forces about to begin? All this in our episode of Hellpoint. An unexpected turn of events. Alaska has erupted in protests. Sensational statements from the people. Putin is about to get pelted with eggs. The Russian delegation was not prepared for this. Ukrainian flags are everywhere. This is a crushing defeat for Russia. The Kremlin is losing its mind over this. Don't miss our in-depth coverage of the situation. Coming up next,
the state of Alaska proudly stands in solidarity with the people of Ukraine. They are both narcissists who care only about their own interests. If they wanted to discuss Ukraine and ending the war, they would have invited Zelensky. It's concerning that Trump is meeting with Putin without Zelensky. Trump is sizing up Putin, and Putin looks strong because he was invited alone. No, this is entirely for show and will not bring anything truly good or beneficial.
Glory to Ukraine forever. Glory to the heroes.
By the way, in Alaska, Putin does have something to be afraid of because people have come out to protest against the Russian dictator and in support of Ukraine. And well, U.S. strategic bombers are already circling near Alaska's borders too. The protests took place in the city of Anchorage, which is hosting the summit. Several hundred people took part in the demonstration. It is known that another demonstration will also take place on the day of the summit, August 15th. Alaska stands with Ukraine. Russia never again. People are quite concerned about Putin's arrival. Both Ukrainians who fled the war and Americans took part in the protests against Russia. Even residents from Washington came to Alaska.
The protests in Alaska, which had been in preparation since the beginning of the week, were organized by the Ukrainian community and Americans who support Ukrainians. They prepared and held these events, protests and rallies together with the local communities there. I know that several people from Washington also went there to communicate with the community, as well as to involve the media and Ukrainian media with the community, so that at least as many people as possible would have the opportunity to express their protest. Right now on your screens, you can see journalist Ostap Yarish, who is currently at the scene. He recently posted a compelling video on his X account, which you can clearly see displayed on your screens right now. And there, in that powerful video, you can unequivocally see that Alaska stands firmly and resolutely with Ukraine and Russia. Never again, absolutely never again. We know that Alaska used to be part of Russian territory, but America bought it, and quite a lot of people in Alaska now support Ukraine. And it is significant that under the Ukrainian asylum program in America, at least 1,000 people, 1,000 Ukrainians have arrived since the start of the full-scale invasion. They came to Alaska in order to, well, build their lives there. And the New York Times did interviews with these people. And people are quite frightened by the fact that they fled from Russia, but it so happened that Putin is coming to Alaska. And in fact, the people there are not very happy about this event in history, but actually these diplomatic meetings have to take place. I know literally right before going on air, I analyzed the American media. And in fact, the American media reported that the timing of the meeting has already been set. At 11:30 local Alaska time, there will be a one-on-one meeting with interpreters. Later, there will be a lunch with the participating delegations, and after that, a press conference is scheduled. However, whether the press conference will actually take place is still unclear, because we know that Trump is unpredictable. Whether Putin will be ready for the press conference is also unknown at this time. Also, according to reports from American media, or rather, not only American, but also propagandist media, they say that they have already departed. They are already prepared to comprehensively cover all the significant events that are scheduled to take place as an integral part of this important summit. Again, as was already explicitly mentioned on air, a very substantial amount of highly trained security personnel and dedicated Secret Service agents have indeed arrived to meticulously ensure that the overall security presence is quite robust and exceptionally strong in the charming town that will be proudly hosting this much anticipated Trump-Putin summit, if you can accurately call it that. I would also like to add that earlier today, Donald Trump made some statements. Of course, there were many statements related to the ongoing summit, and notably, Donald Trump hopes that an agreement will indeed be reached. He hopes that this summit will be very successful.
As for Trump's latest statements, there's definitely a lot to think about there. Rare earth metals are not important. I'm trying to save lives. This is how the US president commented on media reports that America could offer Russia minerals from Alaska to end the war in Ukraine.
If we resolve the war, we'll be happy. As for rare earth elements, that's not important. I'm trying to save lives.
The US president stated on Fox News Radio that a meeting with the Russian dictator in Alaska would be preceded by a second meeting, at which a peace agreement between Kyiv and Moscow would be concluded. At the same time, he said that both sides would have to make compromises regarding borders, territories, and so on.
This meeting sets the stage for the second meeting.
The second meeting will be very important because that's where they will make an agreement. And all right, I don't want to say they'll divide everything, but you know, that's not a bad term, right? But there will be a compromise regarding borders, territories, and so on. The second meeting will be very, very important. This meeting is decisive. It's like a game of chess. This meeting sets the stage for the second meeting. But there's a 25% chance that the meeting won't be successful. In that case, I will run the country. We've already made America great in half a year, and you'll hit them with the consequences, right? And we'll hit them with new sanctions. Senate sanctions will come to the forefront if I didn't, right? If it's not resolved, look, we haven't lost a single soldier, not one. But it was a war. If I hadn't intervened, there could have been a third world war, I'm telling you. Biden had no idea what was going on. It was getting like that, very bad. And at the very least, I calmed it down a lot. I think you'll agree. Much, much more. But they're still losing thousands of soldiers every week, and we have to sort this out.
Trump also suggested that he might invite some European leaders to his meeting with Zelensky and Putin.
Tomorrow we have a meeting with President Putin. I think the meeting will go well, but the second meeting will be more important. We will meet with Putin, Zelensky, myself, and possibly some European leaders. I don't know if it will be very important. We'll see what comes of it.
Speaking about the possibility of a second summit involving the presidents of the US, Ukraine, and the Russian dictator, Donald Trump stated that he would not interfere in the negotiations between Volodymyr Zelensky and Putin.
So, Mr. President, you told Zelensky to be ready. You told him to prepare in case there is real progress. I don't want to talk about a second meeting. I don't even want to hint at the possibility of such a meeting. Maybe it will happen, maybe it won't. So I don't want to talk about it. All right, it's not that important. But it would be convenient to have a good meeting because I'll let them negotiate on their own. I won't negotiate for them. I'll let them come to an agreement themselves.
Trump promised to call Zelensky after his meeting with Putin. The US president added that he doesn't yet know where the second meeting will take place, but the White House has 3 possible locations. He emphasized that the simplest option would be to stay in Alaska.
You know, I'm not sure there will be an immediate ceasefire, but I think it will happen. I'm more interested in a quick peace agreement, a rapid achievement of peace. Depending on the meeting, I will call Zelensky and invite him to wherever we are. I don't know where the second meeting will be, but we have 3 location options, and we're considering staying in Alaska because that would be the simplest. You know, we have long flights, and so does he. A lot of planes are flying when the leaders of Russia, the US, and so on are traveling.
And the classic line, Putin would have taken all of Ukraine if Trump hadn't been president.
I think Putin would like to make a deal. If it weren't for me, he would have taken all of Ukraine.
A natural disaster has hit Alaska. A massive flood greeted the leaders of the US and Russia. It's hard to believe. The American state, quite literally, cannot stand Putin's presence. Shocking statements defy the weather. The whole world is shocked. The news is spreading at the speed of light. What's happening there? Be the first to hear it. In Alaska, where Trump plans to meet with Putin, a powerful flood has begun. Residents of Alaska were warned about the natural disaster the day before. Even nature itself decided to protest against the planned meeting between the US and Russian presidents.
And now, let's return to the most anticipated event of the week, the meeting in Alaska. Coincidentally, a state of emergency has been declared there due to the threat of a catastrophic flood. The high water is expected to hit the regional capital, Juneau, in the coming days. Some residents of the city are already preparing to evacuate. All of this is due to a possible breach of a glacial lake in the Suicide Basin, which is part of the Mendenhall Glacier. Floods from this basin have become an annual problem since 2011. In recent years, they have destroyed houses and flooded hundreds of homes. Hydrological monitoring confirms that the water volume has reached or exceeded the levels observed during previous record floods. A water release is expected at any moment, stated the governor of Alaska.
And now, the record level of floodwaters released by the Mendenhall Glacier has reached the river that flows through Alaska's capital, Juneau. Authorities have reported the risk of flooding. Water has already accumulated on several streets and seeped under recently constructed barriers meant to protect riverside homes. Some residents in the flood zone heeded the warnings and evacuated after water began to escape from beneath the glacier's ice dam. The Mendenhall Glacier is located about 19 kilometers from Juneau, which has a population of 30,000. This city can only be reached by water or by plane. Incidentally, Trump announced serious consequences for Putin if he does not agree to stop the war after negotiations in Alaska. However, on the eve of the Trump-Putin meeting in Alaska, the U.S. temporarily eased sanctions pressure on Russia. The U.S. Treasury announced a temporary easing of sanctions restrictions regarding certain transactions with the Russian Federation as part of preparations for the meeting between the leaders of the two countries. Moreover, Trump admitted that he would not be able to persuade Putin to stop attacks on civilians in Ukraine.
Do you believe you can convince him not to attack civilians in Ukraine? Well, let me tell you this. I've already had that conversation with him. We've had many good conversations, but then I see a missile hit a nursing home or a residential building and people are lying there dead. Probably the answer is no, because I've already had that conversation.
Although the U.S. president suggested to Zelensky that they discuss further joint steps following the talks in Alaska.
We talked about a meeting in Alaska. We hope that the central topic at the meeting will be a ceasefire, an immediate ceasefire. The President of the United States has spoken about this repeatedly. He suggested to me that after the meeting in Alaska, we would be in contact and discuss all the results, if there are any. And we will determine our next mutual steps.
Notably, Trump wants to arrange a meeting between Putin and Zelensky in a short time frame. The U.S. president said that this is possible if the bilateral summit in Alaska on August 15th is successful.
If the first one goes well, we will quickly hold the second. I would like to do this almost immediately, and we will hold a quick second meeting between Putin, Zelensky, and myself, if they want me to be there.
By the way, Trump, Putin, and Zelensky may meet in Europe or the Middle East, according to The Guardian. According to unofficial information, a potential location for the meeting between Zelensky, Trump, and Putin was discussed during a video conference attended by the presidents of the US, Ukraine, and European leaders. NATO is on Ukraine's horizon. Fresh Western developments are coming to us in droves. The level of cooperation is reaching new heights. The allies are already prepared. The Ukrainian armed forces are about to unleash iron predators onto the battlefield and demonstrate their true power in real combat. All that's left for Russia is to read tea leaves. What will happen next? A real explosion is being prepared. Which weapons will be tested first, and what trump cards does Ukraine already have up its sleeve? Find out more in the following report.
Tested in Ukraine. Weapons without this label, it seems, will soon fall out of favor in the West. After all, when the largest war since World War II is taking place in Europe, laboratory testing has lost its meaning. Now any development can be tested directly on the battlefield. The defense cluster Brave One has officially announced the launch of the Test in Ukraine program, which will allow foreign arms manufacturers to test new products directly on the front lines. Companies will send their developments to Ukraine, conduct online training on how to use them, and then wait for Ukrainian troops to test them and send back reports.
A large number of private companies currently engaged in armaments and weapons production have made a significant contribution in this area. And now there is a critical need to coordinate interaction between these companies. Thanks to such testing grounds, we can say that interaction will take place, more collaborations will happen, and this will allow for the creation of joint products that will work more efficiently.
First and foremost, we're talking about unmanned systems, electronic warfare complexes, as well as missile systems.
This drone has already deployed more than This drone has already laid more than 180 mines, has performed quite well, and as you can see, it has returned. Among the other drones you've seen, there are kamikaze drones. Basically, it's universal. It can be used as a kamikaze drone and for delivering cargo, especially small loads.
According to the Minister of Digital Transformation, Mikhailo Fedorov, such an influx of partners and the mass dispatch of equipment for testing in Ukraine will help find solutions more quickly to fundamentally change the course of the war.
The armed conflict is currently in an acute phase, which gives corporations the opportunity to test their weapon systems in real combat conditions. Most of these technologies include drones, systems for controlling them, processing the reconnaissance information they collect, as well as means for detecting and countering drones, mainly through electronic warfare tools, but also using air defense systems.
At the same time, experts say the Test in Ukraine program helps not only to test the development on the battlefield, but also to understand how Western weapons cope with countering a potential enemy. After all, Russia has been officially recognized at the NATO level as one of the main threats to the alliance.
This gives them an advantage, the opportunity to test their developments against the Russian army, to study Russian defense systems, and to adapt their weaponry to counter the technologies that Russia is using on the battlefield, and possibly those that China may use in the future.
Participants in the program have the opportunity to test their developments not only at the front, but also deep in the rear of the Russian Federation if we're talking about long-range weapons. This includes countering Russian electronic warfare systems, the ability to identify targets using artificial intelligence, and of course, the direct capability to destroy the required target.
Such capabilities exist. Currently, they are mostly being implemented with the help of long-range drones. A wide variety of factories are being struck, ones that are critical to the military-industrial complex of the Russian Federation.
In addition, manufacturers will be able to test their products directly on site, that is, by coming to Ukraine themselves. This will allow for real-time modifications. There is also the option to entrust the testing to the specialists at Brave One. In that case, the experts will conduct the testing themselves and provide partners with a detailed report on the results. And this work is already underway, particularly in the field of UAVs.
Many of these drones, as I understand it, are classified. These include, for example, VBET and also Vector. Both are used for reconnaissance, surveillance, and data collection. This conflict is a perfect testing ground for weapons.
In an interview with Reuters, Artem Moroz, head of investor relations at Brave One, said that many companies have already shown interest in the Test in Ukraine program. Of course, without any details. So who and what exactly is going to be tested in Ukraine? Russia will find out in real time.
Ukrainian weaponry has stunned the world. When our people send this bird into the sky, the countdown begins for the enemy. The combat Leleka sees absolutely everything. Every frame from above is a clue for Ukrainian forces, and right after it, devastating strikes. Ukrainian defenders show no mercy to the enemy and deliver a beating literally every hour. These accomplished missions have already gone down in history. Don't miss it.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism, and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
In one of the Frontline forests, the crew is preparing the Leleka drone for a combat flight. The mission is to detect and destroy enemy equipment.
It's easiest when it fires. It gives itself away right away, so you don't really have to overthink it. You find it almost immediately. In the courtyards, there was just a little tank or something, just sitting in the yard of a house, covered up like trash. From the outside, it just looked like a pile of garbage.
That's how the enemy camouflages artillery, tanks, and mortars. The ability to identify a target in time is the main goal of aerial reconnaissance.
We found and hit APCs, tanks, mortars there. We've chased after all sorts of things. You fly high, you see far. What do you see?
Actually, we can see their tactics quite well. That is, they already have a developed tactic.
The scouts observe how the enemy delivers ammunition by motorcycles and enters the forest in small groups. The gathered information is relayed to strike units within just a few minutes. A few years ago, the soldier with the call sign Lis worked as a foot scout. Now he is a drone operator. He started with Mavics, completed FPV training, and later switched to Leleka for deeper reconnaissance.
First of all, for me, let's say it's a challenge. That is, you don't just need to fly around aimlessly and watch, you have to analyze the enemy's actions, track them somewhere. For example, sometimes a vehicle might not seem interesting, but that vehicle is going somewhere. You need to figure out where it's going.
Aerial reconnaissance also means navigating difficult terrain, reacting instantly if communication is lost, and being ready for any scenario. Despite the danger, the work is satisfying, and the team is already thinking about new opportunities.
At one particular point in time, we really wanted to switch to using boats.
Yeah, to water drones.
To water drones. It's actually a really quite interesting and engaging topic, especially when you watch all those truly cool and innovative videos from higher-ups within the organization. There's definitely significant room to experiment and explore new possibilities there.
Every flight of the Leleka is a chance to save our soldiers' lives and disrupt the enemy's plans before they even open fire. Yuri Lozenko, Vitaly Bakumenko, Army TV, Dniemy Ukraina, Marathon, United News.
This is a breakthrough. In the Sumy region, the Russians have started to flee. The Ukrainian armed forces have advanced. There are only a few kilometers left to the Russian town of Tyotkino. Now that's a plot twist. A new push into the Kursk region? Putin's generals are grimacing. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. They're shelling with artillery and throwing sabotage groups into the Frontline meat grinder. But on Ukrainian soil, a fierce reckoning awaits them. We'll tell you in the next segment what's happening right now in the place where the occupiers were celebrating just a few weeks ago.
Bezsalivka is located right on the border with the Federation. Before the Russian invasion, there were 45 houses and about 100 people there. That's according to local authorities. This is what the village looked like before the full-scale invasion. And this video is from a month ago. The occupiers are moving through the ruined streets. At that time, enemy channels even reported that they had captured this village. If they did, it was only for a short time.
The brave Ukrainian defense forces have successfully carried out several highly effective counterattacks, pushing the enemy forces significantly away from our border area and back toward the Russian border itself.
The defense forces have liberated and completely cleared the settlement of Bezsalivka in the Sumy region of Russians, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine reported on Sunday. This is the work of the 33rd Separate Assault Regiment and the 24th Separate Assault Battalion.
This is not an isolated success. It is the result of those active counterattacks and the hard work of our assault troops. For that they deserve honor and praise, because this is a well-executed operation.
Bezsalivka has been liberated, just 5 kilometers from the Russian town of Tyotkino.
Tyotkino, it kind of extends into Strilkivnik, onto the peninsula here, into the territory, let's say, of the Bilopilia community in particular. And it will be divided by the same river. It's quite wide and pretty deep.
In this area, our military is holding an important high ground, says the head of the local community.
They have taken the high ground further on, and in this way, they prevent them from firing en masse from our territory now, specifically from Tyotkino.
In total, 25 settlements in the Bilopilia community have found themselves in the active combat zone. This is the so-called 6-kilometer border zone. Civilians have been evacuated from there. Some villages have been completely destroyed.
The enemy is especially active within the Kotin and Yunakivka communities. I should note, first of all, that there are no signs of armored vehicles or columns of equipment with which they would storm our border. Only small infantry groups.
The Russians shell the local villages with artillery fire almost every day. In addition, there is also a threat from enemy saboteurs.
This includes attempts to mine areas on Ukrainian territory so that Ukrainian soldiers would be blown up by these devices, or reconnaissance of the area in hopes of uncovering the structure of our defenses so that later they can strike with heavier weapons or even attack the positions of Ukrainian defenders with their own forces.
At the same time, Ukrainian units are conducting active operations in several areas at once. In certain areas, the armed forces of Ukraine have advanced up to 400 meters.
Fierce battles for Yevnikivka continue, as do the battles for Oleksivka. And by the way, our troops there are officially located about a kilometer away from this settlement. But nevertheless, they are already penetrating into the territory of this settlement. And I hope, without getting ahead of myself, that in time we will see a somewhat different situation on the battlefield.
Carrying out Putin's order, the Russian army has concentrated more than 50,000 soldiers on the border with the Sumy region. However, while creating the so-called buffer zone, the enemy is failing.
And The actions planned by the military command are aimed at preventing the enemy from gaining a foothold on our territory. And this, of course, applies to all directions along the border.
In the Sumy region, the border with the Russian Federation is 550 kilometers long. According to our border guards, the enemy onslaught along this entire section is being held back by all available means. Rostislav Sisoyev, Ukraine, United News Marathon.
A new hunter has appeared on the front line. Our Lynx. Neither bullets, nor mud, nor walls of fire can stop it. It breaks through where others wouldn't survive and completes its missions flawlessly. When Russians see it, their knees start to shake. The true character of Ukrainian steel now has wheels and claws. This ground drone has already shown its teeth. What is it like in the midst of a technological battle? We'll show and tell you in just a moment.
Go ahead. Go! Go. This is Viper on Tracks, a Ukrainian drone operated over difficult terrain by the controller Defender Zorki.
We're learning, as they say.
Previously, instead of a controller, he held a rifle in his hands, with which he destroyed Russian occupiers, but due to health reasons, he transferred to the drone operators of the 65th Brigade.
Before this, I was a second category sniper, so I've got a bit of shooting experience. Not quite 100, but still.
Our company has taken on the direction of ground robotic systems specifically. This is a very important component in the current war.
The unit commander with the call sign Tokyo says they've been working with ground drones since spring. However, there have also been plenty of aerial achievements. And once, Mavic also captured several Russians.
Where are you from?
Originally from the Udmurt Republic.
Well, how long have you been fighting?
Year.
Thank you to the Carpathian Sich unit for taking me prisoner and getting me alive.
Carpathian Sich. We are all connected to this movement. Specifically, our unit.
A 23-year-old from Kharkiv, call sign Tourist, is a JFO veteran since the start of the full-scale war. As a scout, he went through all the hellish battles.
Through Volnovaka, through Vuhledar. He also fought near Bakhmut and Klishchivka. He was on the Avdiivka front as well, and Sudzhi.
But he says he realized that the future of the war lies with drones, so he decided to join the drone operators of the ground platforms of the 65th Brigade.
I heard that a pretty competent team was being assembled with the goal of striking the enemy and improving logistics routes.
Supplying all directions with provisions, primarily for the infantry. We also conduct mining operations. Right now, we're developing ground drone strike capabilities.
This is the RIS.
24-year-old Kharkiv native Toronto says this Ukrainian RIS, which is currently used as a transport vehicle on the front line, is the very platform that can be upgraded for combat.
This base is being outfitted for a turret. You can install some kind of weapon here.
Currently, the soldiers of the 65th Brigade, who supply the front line with the essentials, have announced a fundraiser for strike drones, which they also operate. So they are asking those who care to contribute. Andriy Pochter, Yevhen Zhinkov, Fakti ICTV, United News.
That's not all for this topic. This was me, Darina Hatsakalo. Even more intense news from the front in our next broadcast. And in the meantime, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. See you soon.